Okay, in this video, I'm going to be making some storage racks for tin cans. Okay, so I've been getting the food storage sorted in here slowly. So I've got this nice set of shelves here. It's got lots of our preserved and dried goods, stuff I dry myself, lots of jams and chutneys and things. And then down here, I've got the apple trays and with apples and pears, and those are all full and full down in the shed as well. But one thing I want to sort out is some of the bought food that we buy. Obviously we've got baked goods and things like that, but one thing that takes up a lot of space is tin stuff. I mean, I do use a lot of tin tomatoes at the moment. I'd like to grow more of my own and can more of my own, but until then, I keep a lot of stuff in stock. I think every household should keep a minimum of 3 weeks food in stock, if not more. We keep more than that easily. I don't like shopping, so I'd rather do it in bulk. But I tend to buy everything in kind of trays. But the trays, when stacked on top of each other, makes it really awkward. One, to rotate your food, so you make sure you use the oldest first. And also to get at stuff just becomes really awkward. So what I'm planning on doing is making some little modular units that will go in here, that will hold a dozen cans or so, and be self-racking and self-sorting, and you'll be able to see kind of how many you've got, and it'll be really nicely organised, and hopefully look really neat. And so I'm thinking I can fit 7 across there. So if I can fit 7 lots of 12 across there maybe, or maybe more if I can fit more in, depending on what I can squeeze into that. I have got some tin storage I made previously in our old pantry, which I'll show you now, and I'll explain why that isn't so useful now for us. Okay, so you can see this is our old pantry area. So this is the old pantry, still got lots of stuff in here which I need to clean out. This is going to become our downstairs loo once I finish the pantry, which, as you can see, especially with the ceiling, needs quite a bit of work, but that's not going to happen before Christmas, unfortunately. But one thing we did have was an understairs cupboard. We had doors that opened inwards. They weren't ideal because it took up most of the space. I used to sling stuff in there. So instead I made a door that opens outwards, and in doing so, I put a caster on the bottom and made it so it holds 102 cans of food, so of our commonly used food. And the idea with this is, you know, it's self-rotating, so you put the new ones in the top, use the old ones at the bottom. Works really well. But I haven't really got the wall space in the new pantry to do this, and I need to get rid of this to put a normal door on here. So I'm wondering what I can do instead. This has been a great system, but it doesn't quite store enough for us. I'd rather, I mean, this stores 10. I think any higher than 10, it starts to crush the cans a little bit because of the weight of them. So I'd like to store more, maybe 15 would be ideal. Buy trays of 12, so at least you've got kind of down to 3, buy another tray. Yeah, so just to increase our storage a little bit. This has been a great system, and I recommend anyone kind of does this kind of thing, especially if you can do it as a door. I mean, look, just takes up no space. Don't even know it's there, so it's been ideal. But I'd like to try something new, so I'm going to make these modular little things and see what happens. Right, so I've cut myself a piece of MDF, which is the same size, so same height as my shelves, or well, about 5mm less, and then the same depth of them. So it's 400 by 325. So this is what I've got to work with to store the tins on. Now when I've done my tin racks before, which are the vertical ones, they've tended to store about 10 tins. After that it gets a bit heavy to pull them out. There's quite a bit of weight on top of them, and they might damage each other. But 10 tins wasn't ideal, because I tend to buy my tins in kind of flats of 12. I always find it easy just to go in and buy a whole flat. So my ideal is probably a bit more than that, and they're probably about 15 tins. That would mean then that you get down to about 3 tins, you can buy yourself another flat, fill them all up, and you haven't got to have loose cans kicking around. They can all be in the storage. But if I do it on this square here, and if I do a good strong ramp so that you get like a good racking kind of action, you're probably going to get probably that many on there, which is 2, 4, 6, 8, probably 10 tins maximum, which isn't really enough. And there's also quite a bit of wasted space in this. So I was wondering if I did it in 2 and kept the slope really shallow and had it so you push the last ones up, I reckon I could just about squeeze in 15 tins. I don't think it's going to be the fastest rolling system, and you might have to occasionally just give it a little knock and a jar, but for me that would be better, because it would mean then that I've got enough stored, and if I had 10 lots of these, that's 150 tins stored easy, and rotating really easily as well. So I'm going to try and set this up now, and I think what I'm going to do, because I want to make quite a few of these, I'm going to make a jig to make them easier. I'm going to do it with a 3/8 bit, probably a collet on the router that will slide up and down the jig, so that this will kind of slot into the right thickness, and it'll just be glued and clamped together. Maybe a couple of pins just to hold it while it's going off. Yeah, so I'm going to try and set up this now, so I get like the absolute kind of minimum roll I can get away with, and then go from there really. Okay, messing about in here. I mean, the workshop isn't perfectly level anyway. If I give it kind of 10mm, the tins do roll. If I was to give it a little bit extra, 20mm, I think that's probably just enough to let it roll strong enough to kind of keep the can rack moving. So I'm going to go onto this bit now and mark out for 20mm kind of ramps, and there might have to be some fillets in the corners to make sure that they don't kind of snarl up, because sometimes if one's gone too far back, then it kind of stops the whole thing moving. So I need to make sure that when it drops down from one level, it goes forward enough so that the other can's pushing it forward, if that makes sense. Okay, so I've drawn this up now. I think I've got it. So I've got 20mm slope there, 20mm slope there, and slightly less on the top one, because otherwise it was going to poke out the top there. And what it does mean is I have to load the cans in from here. You get this far, then you have to load the top cans and push back. So they have to come down past your start point. So although it is kind of oldest first, unless you add halfway through, but I don't think that's too big a problem. Right, so you can see I've taken a piece of MDF bigger than the frame I'm going to make. I've drawn on the lines here, so I've drawn on the grooves that I'm going to need to route. And then because I'm going to use this router collet, which is 30mm, so it's about 10mm bigger either side, and that should then create a trench that my router can follow and route out nice and quickly and easily. Hopefully this jig should stay together. There's enough bits connecting it up so that it could just stay as one piece. So the tricky bit now is cutting this out and making sure it's wide enough for this, which will involve a little bit of fettling back and forth and making sure this can roll up and down. It's not going to be perfect. To do that, probably need a CNC machine, which I have made with a friend, but it takes quite a bit of programming, so I think this is easier for this. So I'm going to now cut this out and see how it goes. Okay, you see I've cut it out now. The collet goes through nicely. So now that all that's left is to cut some stops to put the piece of MDF on. Just go like that. To hold it on there where it's going to go. And then I should be able to route it nice and easily. Repeatable. What I probably need to do then is maybe make a left-hand and a right-hand version. But I'll make one at the moment and just swap them around and see if it works. Put it all together, and then I'll be able to make lots really easily, hopefully. Cool. Right, one thing I should mention with this is I'm using MDF here, so I make sure that you've always got extraction on. If you haven't got good extraction, then wear a mask. But my extraction, well, you'll see, there's hardly any dust that comes off this. So I'm just going to run the router down this. This will be the left-hand one, and that'll be the right-hand one, and they should marry up together. Right, so you can see I've got it all housed out now with all the pieces in place, except the front one here. So I think it's going to be quite tricky to put together to get the top piece on as well. So my plan is to glue it, pin it in a couple of places, and then probably leave some clamps on it. See how it goes together. Okay, so the first test run seems to be a success. So as you can see, it goes together nicely. I think a bit of blackboard paint on there would be quite cool, look quite nice. And what I have done is cut these fillets. So I've got one fillet, this one goes right back here. And then I've got another fillet there, which is slightly bigger. Just cut out a bit of scrap. And then the idea obviously being some of these, couple of tins might be a bit dented from my messing around. Keep going with this. Getting towards, that's 12 tins. The idea being you load from the middle here. These ones don't roll quite as well. So there, it's 15 tins. Take one, and it should nice and slowly just keep feeding through. The only downside is occasionally it needs a shake, but maybe the fillets need to be a little bit bigger. But you can't see how many you've got left, I guess, is a downside without kind of taking them out. You can see when you've only got a few left, and it's going to be up at eye height, so I should be able to kind of see down there or see up there. If you just had a single unit on its own, you'd probably be able to do a cutout on the side so you can see how many you've got left. But because I'm going to probably have about 7 of these together, it's probably not going to work. But yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. That mark on there is a shadow. Okay, so I'm going to make another jig now, a left-handed version. That'll make making them a lot quicker. Have a left hand and a right hand, and then I can knock up a few of these and get the pantry kitted out. Okay, to make a copy of this jig, what I'm going to do is fix another piece of MDF to that, and then I'm going to use the copy bit, so like a bearing guided. Plunge that down, you can see. We've got bearing at the bottom and the cutter at the top. So I drill a couple of holes in that, flip that over, set the bearing so that it runs on the other jig, and then it should be fine then to do it exactly the same. The corners will be rounded, but that won't matter anyway because the collet's rounded, so that should work well. So if I get the drill now. So there we go, 2 jigs the same. So now I need to add some stops, so when I push the piece of MDF I'm going to use to route out, it pushes up against it, and I probably will still use a couple of screws to hold it. There's not really any way to clamp it that size, unless I make some camming kind of lock thing, but I can't bother with that, so I think it's better just to do that. Right, so I've completed a batch of 4 of these, and then what I've done is just taped off roughly some areas on the face of them, and I'm just putting some blackboard paint on these now, and I'll be able to pull the paint off and should be able to see how this batch works in the pantry. Right, so I finished my tin can storage units. I've got 4 of them on here. I'm definitely planning on making some more. I'm really pleased with how these turned out. So I'm going to make 7 that should fit just in here, and then maybe a few more for the top for all the regular tins that we use. They seem to work really well, as you can tell. They kind of rotate the stock really nicely, and you can see what you've got. Especially with these black mold paint bits on there, you'll be able to paint on what you write on what you want. But I mean, you can see it anyway. It just looks a bit smarter. If you were going to use them in a shed or somewhere, I'd probably go with something like ply rather than MDF. Go for a WBP ply or a moisture resistant kind of MDF you can get. But in here, they should be fine. It's not going to be too damp at all. I've worked out the weight as well. So even with 7 on these, it should only be about 45 kilos. So it's not too bad for weight. Probably no more than I'd have if I was just putting tins on anyway. So doesn't make much odds, but keeps them really well organised and a really nice way of stacking them. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please click the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. I'll try and produce some more videos on some different food storage and other homesteading stuff soon. Thanks for watching. Bye. Say bye.